Let's crack management exams. Join Unacademy, India's largest learning platform, and get the best possible resources to crack CAT, GMAT, and all other management exams. My name is Anand Venkatesan, and I'm an educator with Unacademy. Here's a brief look at my profile. As you can clearly see, I've done my engineering from VIT Vellore and then went on to do my postgrad from IIM Bangalore. I have about 4 years of experience in the FMCG sector with one of India's largest companies, and I also have worked. I also have about a decade's worth of experience in having trained students for a variety of these exams. I think I've trained hundreds of students into the top schools like the IIMs, IFT, NMAT, ZAT, ISB, and many others even within India and outside. Alright, enough about me. Here's a quick look at what you get on the Unacademy platform. To be very honest, in a nutshell, let's say that you get pretty much everything that you need to further your preparation. That includes classes that happen live. You can see that this is called daily because if you join a batch, there'll be a regular schedule in which you can start learning, and you basically have the flexibility of attending a session almost every single day. The onus, I guess, is on you. In fact, you can also attend multiple sessions in a given day, right? So many live classes and options for that on the app. Number two, you can also practice what you learn in class, right? In the form of tests, in the form of quizzes, in the form of mocks. Just so that you keep evaluating, am I able to apply what I'm learning, and do I need some more clarification? Because all of those doubts that you get will also get clarified. The third thing, I think, and one of the most important aspects of a study plan is the need for structure when you're preparing, right? Because most times we find that if you're preparing for an important exam, the interest usually sort of wavers, and it's very difficult to keep a weekly schedule where you learn a few concepts but also practice it. But I think that's where this, the use of technology and the Unacademy app and the way it's designed is beautiful because, you can attend classes on a weekly basis. You can intersperse your preparation in the middle, your practice in the middle, self-prep in the middle. You can also ask doubts for every week. You can ask doubts in the classroom itself and get them clarified as you go, right? And I think the most, attractive aspect is that, well, you do learn, but you have unlimited access to everything that you learn from, which means whether it's live classes, whether it's the tests and the quizzes that you're attending, you can rewatch those lectures, those quizzes, all the classes that you attend, you can rewatch recordings at any given point in time. Here's a quick look at the educator profile. I think goes without saying that these are subject matter experts, people who've been scoring 99%, who take CAT every single year, or in fact other exams also. And I think one important aspect that I should point out is that these are also people who've clocked thousands and millions of minutes on the app, right? Which means that they have this experience of having interacted with students, with aspirants, and know how to deliver courses online. Talking about classes, you should know that there are two kinds of classes on the Unacademy app. One is called Special and the other one is called Plus. Think of special classes as trial sessions because these are free of cost. All you need to do is register on the app, and once your registration is complete, you can start attending special classes completely free of cost. But then at some point you'll realize that you need a lot more options for live classes, and that comes only if you subscribe for Plus, right? And once you subscribe, I think the big advantages that you get is that you can access many batches, and with batches, obviously, on a daily basis, you get many more live lectures, right? So I think that's one big reason why you should subscribe. I did mention batches, and obviously comes up this aspect of structure and regular preparation. And one of the batches that I'm currently part of is this batch, Extreme Batch 2021. This is a batch which is mentored by us three IIM Bangalore graduates. That's me over here. Well, what can I say? I think I've just about finished arithmetic. I'm going to start off with number properties this Sunday. Well, I think that's the big advantage you get, right? You can learn from the best of educators. You can also, if it's not the entire syllabus, you can also choose some micro topic and start learning from an educator. Like you'll have courses on number systems, on arithmetic, on, mixed questions on LRDI, maybe a weekday batch, maybe a weekend batch. So many permutations and combinations. And I think the idea is to create a lot of options for you to learn. Well, all you need to do is choose a subscription plan. It's as simple as that. You can see these plans go from as little as a month long to as much as 12 or 24 months long. One piece of advice: choose as long a term as you possibly can, because well, what can I say? I think you can access educators and classes for a longer duration. I mean, it's pretty much an undocumented fact that the longer you prepare, the better your outcomes are for any exam. And I say this with absolute confidence based on my experience in the test prep industry. Right? So what are you waiting for? I think experience special. I think register on the app today and start your learning journey. But don't forget, when you do subscribe, make sure that you use my referral code. That's AV01, shown right here at the bottom. Because that gives you a 10% discount on any subscription plan. Any of these subscription plans that you buy, you get a 10% discount. You can see that there is a discounted price that's written, after the discount, and that's what you'll end up paying. Okay, this was about Unacademy. There is a scholarship test too that Unacademy conducts every Sunday, so do check it out. And exciting Amazon vouchers to be won. For sure, something that you should try out. Right, so let's get into our agenda for today's session. This is we need to learn about, we need to practice. We've been practicing, in fact, sentence correction for some time now. So this is one of those advanced, levels where, and hopefully sort of look at tough questions that challenge you, and try and solve them in the best of time. Right. So here's how it works. I'll show you some questions up on the screen. I'll give you a minute to think about it, and then I'll kickstart a discussion. If you're watching a recording of this session, feel free to pause the video at that point, and try the question, compile your thoughts first, and then only watch the solution or watch the discussion, right? Because I think the big value is for you to first fine-tune your approach to these questions, and see if your approach matches the one that I take, or the tips that I take, or the things that I want you to watch out for. So that should really be useful, right? Okay, question number one. A minute to go. Let me know what you'd mark for this question. All right, I have an answer from Asim. Not sure if Shaurya has joined us. Is C correct? Right. What do we have here? In recent times, troubled airlines have exchanged their aging inefficient fleets for a smaller number of efficient. Okay, so in recent times, airlines have replaced their old fleets with new airplanes, right? Efficient new airplanes. And then after the comma, the question goes into reasoning for why that happened, right? In part because high fuel costs should be lowered and repair costs should be reduced. And I mean, even while I read it, I feel uncomfortable about the word should, right? I mean, why would you say in part because this should happen, right? Because should is usually used to give an order or to, to set out a rule, right? If you're creating a rule or you're giving an order, then you'd say, you should do this, or students should do that, or airline companies must do this. It will be more of a regulator oversight or a mentor who's going to do that, right? So should doesn't seem I mean, you should see that should doesn't isn't very appropriate here. And the moment I see that anything which should would be incorrect, so I can rule out option A. I can also rule out option C, right? And the other thing that you notice is that here you have in part, and after the underlined portion you have partly, right? And if there's one thing that I've learned is that parallelism errors are one of the most common errors on the GMAT. So whenever you see a conjunction and, you have two clauses at the end of it, at either side of it, both clauses should be of similar form. So if you're saying in part in the first portion, in the first clause, second clause should also begin with in part, or vice versa. If you're saying partly in the second portion, first portion should also begin with partly. So for that reason, I'm going to eliminate option B. Now it's a throw up between D and E. Let's read D. Partly for the lowering, right? Who talks like this, right? Why do you say it's very unidiomatic? It's not correct to say for lowering. In fact, you should say partly to lower, right? And that's the correction that's been made. Correct choice is indeed option E. Yeah, you got this the second time around, Asim. Right, moving on. Here's question number 2. What do you think, Kasim? All right. Right. This sentence is an interesting one because it also shatters that myth that we have that most no valid sentence starts with a because, except if it's on the GMAT. Because I mean, I think it's more the UK or British English which frowns upon starting with the conjunction because. No such qualms as far as American English goes, right? So okay, because 70% of the people of India use wood as their sole fuel. 10 million acres of forest have been lost there since 1960, resulting in wood now costing 8 times as much to collect and distribute than in 1960. Right now, notice the first thing I should do is I should eliminate option A, or I should at least evaluate the original underlined portion itself. What's wrong with it, or is there something wrong with it? Well, I think even if as you read, I think instincts will tell you there's something wrong. Maybe you don't find, maybe you're not able to exactly pinpoint the mistake, but let me try. Resulting in something, and what is that something? Resulting in wood now costing, okay, wood now costing 8 times as much. So you're comparing, right? Wood costs 8 times as much as compared to what? As compared to how much it costed, or how much it costed in the year 1960. That's the implication, right? So basically what you're trying to say is that resulting in the fact that wood now costs much more as compared to what it did in 1960, right? But ask yourself, what are you comparing? Are you comparing wood in 1960 with wood in the present? No. What you're comparing is how expensive wood, or how costly wood was in 1960 as compared to the same price of wood in 2020. Yeah. So basically you're comparing two actions, how much it costed. So it's an action, it's a clause, and when you're comparing clauses, I think you should make sure that you compare the right clause with the right one, not comparing a bird with another clause. And second thing you should keep in mind is, because this comes in play when we see conjunctions again, you should make sure that its idiomatic usage is followed to the T. Right now, let's go ahead and look at the four remaining options, because we've already rejected option A. About B, resulting in wood now costing 8 times as much to collect and distribute as in 1960. Again, same problem, right? The first difference you'll notice is that how is it different from saying than something and versus as something? Well, both are comparison markers, but usually than would be a comparative marker between two different things. And the other thing that you should remember is that what is the conjunction that combines this, what that helps you to make this comparison. Resulting in wood now costing 8 times as much to collect and distribute as compared to how much it costed back then, right? So if you are comparing the first thing, which is wood costing 8 times, then you should compare it with 1960, or should I compare it with how much it costed in 1960, right? And it's easy to see, it should have said how much it costed. So you need to bring the verb. A obviously was wrong, but B is missing that verb, as much to collect and distribute as it would cost today, maybe, right? So and again, there is a parallelism error with my suggestion, but I hope you understand what I am trying to tell you, right? The other thing you'll notice in the options is after distribute you have distribute than, idiomatically incorrect. You don't say it. Okay, so this is discrete from distribute, right? It's a different angle on conjunction. 8 times as much to collect and distribute than let's say water or some other element. So I'm sorry about that. So yeah, this is what I was trying to say. Distribute that, distribute as, distribute than it did, and distribute as it did. And you notice that here the verb is missing. The verbs that I wanted, the actions that I wanted, how much it costs, right? Costs is a verb, is an action, right? So that is missing. So for that reason, A and B can be ruled out. In C, D and E, again, E can also be ruled out as much as a result, right? Would now cost 8 times as much as a result to collect and distribute than in 1960, right? Again, same problem, parallelism error. And even an idiomatic error, would now costs 8 times as much as a result. What do you mean as a result? It's just hanging in there in the middle. It just sounds out of place, right? So it's a throw up between C and D, right? Should I say resulting in would, or should I say and as a result would now? What do you mean would now costing 8 times? Resulting in would now, or as a result would now costs 8 times as much to collect and distribute as it did in 1960. Right? Correct choice is option D. I hope that you are able to agree with me on this, Asim. Alright, let's move on. Here's question number 3. Just give me a second, I'll be back. Much confused. Yeah, I see, I hear you, Asim. I know. That's the thing about these sentences, right? So, you need to know what rule and why. I think the why is more important. Practice kar karke, you'll find that, if you do, let's say, 500 questions like on sentence correction, then you'll find that errors start repeating. Same kind of errors will flow around, right? But you need to learn from every mistake you make, every sentence that you come across, that you practice. Right, Asim, any answers for this one? I think you made a fundamental mistake on this question, right? Because if you look at compare option choices, right? Were wound, was wound, was wound, was wound, right? Which means these two are plural and these three are singular, right? So verb singular hai ki plural hai, what will it depend on? It will depend on the action. It will depend on the subject. Who's the doer of that action, right? Who was wound or what was wound, right? So the trick is to know that amid the expression of religious creed and artistic manifestation of ecclesiastical thesis, right? So amid something happening, were wound the cluster, right? तो यहाँ पे noun जो है cluster है, subject ये है, It's like saying Ram was watching television amid the chaos, uh, amid all the chaos in the locker room was the discussion, or was the sound of the television, right? Was the sound. So what was? Sound was. Sound singular, so was. Similarly here, what was wound? The cluster of Byzantine classical arts. But remember, even though it says classical arts, plural लगेगा शायद आपको, but it's the cluster. Cluster मतलब, right? Things cluster together if they form a group, right? So if it's a cluster, it's one cluster, so singular, right? It's like a collective noun, and if it's a collective noun, it should be singular. And if the subject is singular, then the verb should also agree with it. So verb wound, option A and B can be straight away ruled out, right? Can't be A, can't be B, right? So now you know was wound, right? So let's compare C, D and E. Was wound the cluster of Byzantine classical arts. Till here everything is common. And then you have either to say spread far and wide from Egypt to Arabia to the Russian mainland, versus which was spreading far and wide from Egypt and Arabia to the Russian mainland, and versus that had spread, right? Which one should I prefer, right? Now, first thing you'll notice is that though two of these option choices are long, one of them is very concise and very short, right? And on the GMAT, I think you should always prefer the shortest answer, right? The shortest way of expressing an idea is usually preferred, right? So if D is not grammatically incorrect, then I should pick D, right? So let's look at D. Was wound the cluster of Byzantine classical arts spread far and wide. What was spread far and wide? Classical arts, right? So spread far and wide from Egypt and Arabia to the Russian mainland. Okay, nothing wrong grammatically with it. And if there is indeed nothing wrong, we should prefer D. I mean, you should prefer to not use the relative pronoun which or that. Yeah, I figured, Asim, and it has religious creed and artistic manifestation, so it will look like it's plural, right? But amid matlab beech mein, like in the middle of. So in the middle of, whenever something starts with a preposition, no, तो you should think ये phrase होगा, which, and what is a phrase? A phrase is something which gives you extra information, but it's not part of subject verb agreement. तो आप इसको हटा सकते हैं, इस पूरे वाले पोर्शन को आप हटा सकते हो अगर आपको पता है, and it starts with a preposition, right? And so good, keep asking these doubts that you have. I think keep getting clarity then and there. At least you'll get better at it for sure, right? So question number 3, answer is option D. Let's move on to question number 4. Okay. See, right, I think if you haven't already noticed, right, the first portion till the comma starts with to, prepositional phrase. Right? So to end violent tendency, to get something done, mothers want peaceful. Mothers want what? Mothers want A. Peaceful conflict resolution. B. Readily available counseling. And C. Decreasing the prominence of prevalent television shows that contain A and B, that contain abundant and often casual violence. Okay. So what's wrong with the sentence, right? And now look at, if you have A, B and C. Mothers want A, B and C. A, B and C should be parallel in structure and form, and they should have the same part of speech at every single place. So for example, mothers want peaceful conflict resolution. Right? This was you visualizing. Right? B, peaceful conflict resolution. Resolution is the noun here. Resolution of what? Conflict. Conflict resolution how? Peaceful. Adverb and adjective respectively. Right? B, they need to have readily available women's counseling. Oh, I forgot to continue with this, right? So A, B, and C. Sorry. Uh, so A, B, and C should be in parallel, right? You can see resolution, noun, right? So you're describing resolution by using adverb and adjective. What is the second thing that you're talking about? Counseling, also a noun. What kind of counseling? Readily available counseling. Fair enough. And C should also be a noun. But is it a noun? Decreasing the prominence means you have a verb, right? And so sentence A is wrong. Noun, noun, and verb is not correct. They should all be in the same form, right? So B will also be ruled out. Decreasing the prominence again. A decrease, yes, a decrease is a noun. A decrease of what? A decrease of the prominence of television shows containing, as they do, often casual violence in abundance. Okay, that just looks, I mean, that just reads clumsy, right? Casual violence that they do, containing, as they do, often casual violence, right? Do they contain it often, or do they often contain, or do they have often casual violence, right? And you can see that for that reason I'm going to rule out option C, because it was reading fine otherwise except for this portion, right? How about D? A decreased prominence. Here the noun is prominence, right? So a decreased prominence of the abundant and often casual violence contained in television shows. And that sounds good. And what does E do? It says the same thing, a decreased prominence of television shows that they contain about hostile violence, casual violence, sorry. Right? And you can see that that contain abundant but often casual. Again, same problem. What do you mean often casual violence, right? That often contain casual violence, I can understand, but contain casual violence is not correct. So correct answer is option D. About question number 5. What do you think, Asim? Question number 5. And what do you think will be the answer? Right, not even nobody, not even those at the Silicon Valley startup who have access to the code and the data. So you can see the thing between the dashes, right? Usually you use dashes to expand something that you're talking about. You're describing nobody in this between these hyphens, right? So what I can do is I can ignore this for now. Nobody can tell what piece of data came together in combination with what other piece of data to result in the findings, not the finding, the program had made, right? So A is obviously incorrect, right? Findings the program had made. But, who can tell? Nobody can tell what piece of data came together in combination with what. Came together in combination. Nobody can tell is in the present. And what can he not tell? What piece of data came together in combination with what other piece of data, okay? Right? But how can it come in combination? Maybe what you need to find, what you're trying to say is that what right, came together does mean combination, right? So why do we need the word combination at all? So indeed B can be ruled out, right? So nobody can tell what piece of data came together with what other piece of data, right? That's parallel enough to result in finding the program had made, right? So the problem is this part again, finding the program, the result in the findings that the program had made. That's the way it should have been, right? So C is ruled out. With nobody can tell what piece of data came together with what other piece of data to result in the finding. Yeah, findings or finding, maybe it's a single finding, to result in the finding the program made, right? And now notice that there is a notice that there is a right? Notice that to result in the finding the program had made. This is perfect tense, right? Versus in the finding the program made. So do you need the perfect tense or not? That's the first question to choose between C and D. Past perfect tense is usually used either to mention duration, right? And that's not given a mention here. Or the past perfect tense could be used in combination with simple past tense. That one happened in the past but slightly late, and the other one happened much before it. So, greater past, the earlier past would have been in the past perfect tense, and the later past would have been in the simple past tense, right? And that's the way that you should think about it. So in that sense, am I trying to say that the findings came much earlier than the piece of data came? No, that's not true, right? So the perfect tense had will not need, but this one looks quite perfect, right? This one looks like we can directly incorporate it. How about E? With what other piece of data resulting in the finding the program made, right? So to result is better than to result is better than resulting in, right? So good answer. Asim, good answer. Yes, question number 6. D as well. Okay. Slightly tricky one. This a dedication by Colin Powell, right? So when you're talking about a dedication, this sounds like it describes something, right? And then what about this portion? Given in the same year as his appointment as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So what was given? The dedication was given, right? But then if you put a comma and then you write given in the same year, just as it's written here, it will seem as if Powell was given in the same year as his appointment, right? That's one problem, right? Okay. And the other thing you should notice is also that given in the same year as his appointment as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? It talks about something, right? Something was given. So clearly that's a noun modifier. And when you come across modifiers, I mean, as a habit, as a rule, just learn to evaluate them, but more importantly, learn to eliminate them and simplify the statement. Right? Because what does a modifier or a prepositional phrase do? Extra information deta hai wo aapko, right? It tells you some more information. It embellishes the sentence. But if it's extra, grammatically speaking, if it's not incorrect, you can remove it and simplify the statement. So, for example, a dedication by Colin Powell commemorated the Buffalo Soldiers at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the birthplace of one of the regiments. Right? A dedication by Colin Powell, and after the portion, do you need a verb or not is the question, right? You don't, because commemorated itself is the verb, right? You don't need to add another verb before it. It already is the verb, right? So if you look at A, we've figured out A is incorrect, right? A dedication given in the same year as his appointment as the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff commemorated the Buffalo Soldiers, right? How about option B? A dedication by Colin Powell. Again, same problem. Colin Powell seems to have been given the same year as his appointment to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. B is also ruled out. How about C? A dedication by Colin Powell, comma, given in the same year. Now notice the change in the language. Given in the same year that he was appointed. Right? Given in the same year that he was appointed chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then no verb after that, right? Because you have commemorated. So a dedication by Colin Powell commemorated the Buffalo Soldiers in option C, and the modifier, right? And by the way, that's something that we missed out. Given in the same year as his appointment as the given in the same year when hona chahiye na, right? Or in this case, the correction is given in the same year that he was appointed chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? Jab ka ek little meaning chahiye hoga hame, which is why you use that, right? Well, you've marked D. I seem to think C is also fine, but let's check out D. Colin Powell gave a dedication in the same year as his appointment as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that commemorated the. Do I need a that there? In fact, is it even a valid comparison in option D? Colin Powell gave a dedication in the same year as his appointment. What are you comparing? As what? Right? How he gave a dedication in the previous year versus his appointment as Joint Chiefs of Staff. Right? That's completely off the charts. So D is wrong. And then in E, Colin Powell gave a dedication in the same year of appointment as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that commemorated the right, and so I hope you can see that option C is the correct answer. Okay, moving on. Here's question number 7. Are things okay so far, Asim? All right, I can see your answer. You're suggesting option B. Let's look at this. So distinguished architecture requires the expenditure of large sums of money, even if it is by no means certain that the expenditure of large sums of money produce distinguished architecture. Right? And if I look at the option choices, you'll notice some differences, right? Even if it is, even if it is, even though there is, right? So one question is even if it is hona chahiye ya even though hona chahiye. The second difference, if you read it carefully enough, you'll find that produces, producing, right? And the moment you look at produce versus produces, right? Produce is for plural and produces will be for singular, right? So subject verb agreement, right? Look at the subject of this sentence. What produces, right? It is by no means certain that expenditure of something, right? Forget what that prepositional phrase is. That the expenditure produce, expenditure singular hai ki plural hai? Expenditure is obviously singular. And if expenditure is singular, then this should be produces, right? A is ruled out, B is also ruled out, right? So A and B, even if you don't figure out, even if it is used hona chahiye ki nahi hona chahiye, even if you don't figure that out, I think produces will give you a hint, right? Expenditure produces, right? It should be singular, right? And how about in E? Though there is no certainty as to the expenditure of money in large sums producing, right? That's a very clumsy, convoluted way of expressing the idea, right? So E is here rule out karna. So now most GMAT questions, here's the thing you should do. You should boil it down between one or two options, two or three options. Right? So now I boil down to C or D. अब इन दोनों को compare करना है. Even though there is no certainty that the expenditure of money in large sums produces distinguished architecture, okay, versus even though it is by no means certain that the expenditure of large sums of money produces something. Okay, there's very little to choose from, right? In the original sentence of this one. So here is the thumb rule, right? Usually if the original sentence contains a way of expressing an idea, unless it's grammatically wrong or there is a shorter, more concise way, you should choose to not alter it, right? And between C and D, you can see that even though there is no certainty versus it is by no means certain, right? Now, there is no certainty is something that is a change, a modification to the original way of expressing it, because the original sentence contains even if it is by no means certain that the expenditure, right? So even if it is certain, even if it is by no means certain, right, is the original form in which you are saying this, stating the idea. So here you'll say between C and D, very, very close options, but unfortunately I'm going to have to pick D because it is the same manner of expressing the idea as it is in the original sentence. Reason to pick D. Okay, your sentence 8. make a small correction in this sentence. I think it should be underlined from here. Kudos, kudos. That is indeed the right answer, Asim. Uh, Australian embryologists have found evidence that suggests that the elephant is descended from an aquatic animal. Perfect. And its trunk originally evolving, right? You can see this is a problem, right? A is incorrect, right? But what does this evidence suggest, right? Have found evidence that suggests that A, elephant is descended from an aquatic animal, and B, its trunk, evolved as a kind of snorkel, right? So two things, and these two things separated by and means they should be parallel, right? So in B, have found evidence that has suggested, right? Tense error, has suggested. Why talk about it in the perfect tense? You should simply state it in the simple present, right? That suggests. How about suggesting, right? Australian embryologists have found evidence suggesting that. No. Evidence that suggests, or evidence to suggest, right? That is there in options D and E. Evidence to suggest that the elephant had descended. So one is a tense, that the elephant had descended or is descended, right, from an aquatic animal, and its trunk originally evolved as a kind of snorkel. But then these two are not parallel, right? To suggest that A and that B. To suggest that the elephant had descended from an aquatic animal and that its trunk, you can see this, that is crucial to make it parallel. Its trunk originally evolved as a kind of snorkel, right? So from all measures, tense as well as parallelism, it's better to write it in form E. Good job, Asim. Here's the next one, question number 9. Right. Okay, between the choices that you selected, I think that's one of the big decision that you need to make, right? What was the tremendous originality, right? Was the originality in the fact that he proposed or in his proposal itself, right? Between A and E, I think, in fact, A, D matlab also says in his proposal, but then laid is long, right? Lay will be the past tense of lie, right? Yeah, so I can eliminate that. Uh, well, I don't know about you, but I don't think the originality was in the fact that he proposed something, but I think the originality was the proposal itself, right? Just the idea itself. So, uh, A, B, and C will be wrong for that fact, and E is the correct choice for that fact, right? Because his originality lay in his proposal of natural selection as a means by which evolution worked, versus A, B, and C lay in the fact that he proposed the idea. I mean, that's not original. It's not like people before him did not propose ideas, right? Lay in the fact of his proposing the idea. Same thing, written in a very complicated manner, as it is written in C also, right? And D, I told you, laid is an incorrect form, incorrect verb here. So correct choice is option E, right? At least you've boiled it down to the two correct choices, Asim. Right? Okay, next up, question number 10. B, let's check it out. Elephants observed in Kenya use different trumpeting noises depending on the purpose of their call. Some sounds were intended as a warning call. So here's where parallelism, again, while आते ही आपको समझ में आना चाहिए parallelism होना चाहिए. Some sounds were intended as a warning call, while others, blah. Right? So look at the first part. Some sounds, while others refer to other sounds. Right? So some sounds were intended. Right? तो form क्या है यहाँ पे? Intend को were intended as a warning call. Right? So past tense of a verb, right? Some sounds were intended, while others, again simple past tense में आना चाहिए, right? Some sounds were intended as a warning call, while others to express नहीं आना चाहिए, right? Because this is the infinitive form. While others intended to express, right? Now the thing is that do you say others intended to or were intended to, right? So it's idiomatically incorrect to say intended to do something, right? ये चीज़ आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा. I intend to do something, but my intention was to do something. That's the way that you'll talk, right? So some sounds were intended as a warning call, while others, option C, expressed emotion or intimidated predators. Perfect. Past tense में, simple past tense में accept कर रहे हो, express कर रहे हो. C sounds perfect. Others were to express, right? तो यहाँ पे simple past tense तो आ रहा है, but उसके बाद एक infinitive आ गया. That's not there in the first portion. Were intended as a warning call, or others were to express emotion. No, right? It might seem like it's also in the simple past tense, but it's not. And again, intended standalone, like I said, it's incorrect usage. So the correct choice here will be option C, while others expressed emotion or intimidated, right? Okay, here's the next one, sentence 11. Tell me what you would mark. Asim. Okay. Here's my question before I discuss. What does this word mean? Cite. Right? Ask yourself this question. What does cite mean? Citation. Cite means to quote, means to use as a reference, use something as a reference, right? So when you say he cited an article in his defense, right, it means that you're using it as evidence, right? You're using something as evidence, as proof, right? So then automatically cite will refer to something that is evidence, correct? Okay. Now read this sentence, original sentence. The 151 member governments of the World Bank are expected to increase the bank's funding by $175 billion. Though some US, United States legislators cite, so again, some legislators, plural, cite, plural, okay. What do they cite? They cite an obstacle. Okay. How can they cite an obstacle to congressional passage being a concern, right? Shouldn't they cite the concern and not, shouldn't the concern be cited as an obstacle and not the other way around? Can you see the problem here? Right? It's like saying, in his defense, he cited the newspaper article, right? Which would mean that the article that you're referring to is the proof. But he would cite it to prove something else. Similarly, here, the legislators would cite something as a concern or something as an obstacle, right? So in this case, it should be cite as, so the correct answer here is option C. They cite as an obstacle to congressional passage the concern that the bank's loan will help foreign producers compete with American businesses, right? So basically what you're saying is, if the bank, like, their concern is that if you give money to this bank, the bank will then, loan this money to foreign producers and they will then compete against American businesses, right? Now this is a concern that they have, and this concern is being cited as an obstacle. You get it? So, and this is being cited by them as an obstacle, right? Which is what C does, right? E may be as an obstacle, cite as an obstacle for Congress to pass it the concern, right? You can see yahan tak theek hai, but iske aage galat hai, right? So the correct choice is option C, and I hope that the explanation makes sense, because here I think it's more the meaning of the word itself that will help you choose between the option choices. The options, by the way, some of them are horribly constructed, right? So instead of using and discussing the option choices, I thought I'll tell you the logic of it. Alright, try this one, question number 12. Okay, let's look at this. astronomical occurrences can be viewed in a religious light. Many people are known, let's read from sentence A. Many people are known to rekindle their faith after the observation of a meteor shower. Okay. But then, the only problem I have is after the observation, right? I mean, the observation is a noun, whereas it should be after observing a meteor shower, right? They are known to do something after doing something else, right? So they are knowing to rekindle their faith after observing a meteor shower, which is why, right, while A might not seem wrong, we'll still mark it incorrect, right? How about B? Many people are known to have rekindled their faith once a meteor shower has been observed. Well, yes, many people are known to have done something after something has been observed. Absolutely right. Right? Correct choice is indeed option B. As 13th mein dekho, C mein dekho, there are many known people who have many known people. No, that's incorrect. After a meteor shower is observed, there are many people who have rekindled their faith. No. Rekindling their faith, this is horribly. I think the option choices are much easier here. Correct answer is indeed option B. Right? How about 13th? It'll be a little more challenging, I hope. Original sentence. Okay, let's see this. Like the wineries, the moment you see the word like, you should think comparison is happening, right? And with comparison, you'll have to think to check what is being compared with what, and are these things being compared in a parallel structure. Those are two things you should evaluate, right? So what are you comparing? Like A, comma B. That's the structure, right? Like A, B also. Something like that. So like the wines from Germany, okay, that's A. Like A, comma, whatever follows should be the other thing, right? But here after, comma is a modifier. Also an area with a temperate climate, right? So this describes Germany. No problem. Modifier attached to the main noun, but let's simplify it by removing it for now. Like the wines from Germany, wineries in upstate New York, right? What are you comparing? You are comparing wines from Germany with wineries in New York. It's like comparing a bottle with a distillery, right? Doesn't make sense, right? So A will be wrong because you are not comparing similar things. Comparable objects होने चाहिए ना compare करने के लिए. Now one more thing I'll say here: whenever you see like, you should keep in mind that like should also compare, should only compare nouns. It can't compare clauses. It can't compare noun clauses. ठीक है? B पढ़ते हैं. Wineries in upstate New York create rich, full-bodied wines, much like the original sentence says, full-bodied wines similar to the wines from Germany, right? Now here the comparison is happening to by using this, conjunction similar to, right? So full-bodied wines similar to wines from Germany, absolutely perfect, right? We are comparing wine, created by wineries in upstate New York and comparing it to wine from Germany, right? Absolutely valid comparison. Is it similar in form? Yes. Wines is similar to wines, absolutely similar in form. From Germany, which, like upstate New York, what is this? Which, and then when you have like upstate New York, is comparing Germany with New York, right? Valid again, right? Like upstate New York, which is an area, right? I can, again, this is a modifying phrase which compares Germany with New York. If I remove it, which is an area with a temperate climate. Oh, perfect, right? Sentence B is the correct choice here. Like A, B. No. Like A and B nahi hota hai. Like A, B. Like Ram, his sister also likes toast. Something like that. Okay, here's sentence 14th. Tell me what should mark. Right, let's look at this. Although the coordination of monetary policy can help facilitate the orderly financing, although the coordination of monetary policy can help facilitate the orderly financing of existing imbalances, it is unlikely that its effect on their size it is unlikely that its effect, whose effect? Policy's effect on their size, on whose size? Imbalances, the sad that of imbalances, right? And so there, the problem it is unlikely that its effect on their size is significant in the absence of an appropriate fiscal adjustment, right? It's just, the moment you read it, it's just not clear, right? The meaning is not clear, right? So let me read on, let me check the other options before I rule, right? B says it is unlikely that the size of their effect would be significant, right? And now I seem to get the meaning, right? How about C? Affecting their sizes are not likely to be significant. C sounds obviously wrong, right? So does B. How about D? The significance of their effect on its size is unlikely. That sounds clumsy, right? How about E? Its effect, whose effect? It, as in singular, its effect, right? Uh, the coordination, right? Although coordination can help facilitate orderly financing of existing imbalances, its effect on their size, its as in the effect of the coordination on their, on the imbalances, the size of the imbalances is not likely to be significant in the absence of an appropriate fiscal adjustment, right? Indeed, choice E is the perfect choice because it communicates this meaning and maintains the pronoun agreement, right? Singular with singular, plural with plural, right? Good answer. Last question that we'll take a look at today, sentence 15. I think it sounds like it's a simple one. Tell me what should mark. Hold on. All right, so you say option D. Okay, well, congratulations first of all on eliminating option A, because appearing to be the only candidate whose views would be acceptable to its membership, this from here to here is a modifier, right? If you start the sentence with appearing, then it becomes a modifier, right? Which means this is a noun modifier that talks about the youth canorous. It's like an agency, that like a organization is described as appearing to be the only candidate, which is completely incorrect, right? So A is obviously incorrect, and even B does the same mistake, right? Instead of saying appearing, if you say seeming, same problem, and being also same problem, right? So instead of that, you must use because, right? But between C and D, what is the difference? Because he seemed the only candidate versus because he appeared to be the only candidate, right? Because he seemed the only candidate whose views would be acceptable to its membership versus because he appeared to be the only candidate, right? So seemed to be is missing, right? So D is incorrect. C is correct because it has that to be the only candidate, right? Because he appeared to be the only candidate whose views would be acceptable to its membership is the correct form of stating this. Sentence 15, option C is the right choice. Others can be eliminated, right? Hope that's clear. Hope that you learned something about sentence correction and the rules of grammar. For my part, I'm going to close with a quick sort of word on the three big advantages of using the Unacademy app. One, flexibility, right? What kind of flexibility? You can learn on a tab, you can learn anytime, anywhere, you can rewatch recordings, you can study in a schedule that suits you, that uh, that suits your requirements, and you can study in a language that you like, right? So very, very flexible. Two, it's very, very interactive, right? It's super interactive because you can ask questions in the chat, and the educator, in fact, you can also take a photograph and upload it, and the educator can immediately clear your doubts. Educator can ask polls and get your feedback on it. So it's interaction both ways. And finally, there's plenty to practice. I think steps that close the loop. One, you should have good educators. Two, you should have interaction and flexibility. And three, you should have practice. And this is the third sort of tenet of why this is a great app to use, right? So I mean, I would urge you to quickly sort of consider subscribing to one of these plans. Don't forget to use my referral code AV01 when you're registering. And again, you can see that there are many durations on offer, but think about or consider the longer term plans, because it gives you access for a longer duration, which allows you to be better prepared, right? Well, that's my time today, guys. Thank you. Do like, share and subscribe this video if you liked it. Comment and let me know what you think, if I should alter this arrangement a little. But till we meet next time,